but we couldn't get to one without becoming one with ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, like everything was moving around me, and I was just here. You know, and so I started feeling the love of God. I started feeling it heavy, and I remember I would watch sermons and I would cry every single sermon, and I would listen to a worship song and I would cry. You know, not every single one, but it'd be the ones that get me, man. I remember sitting there and
you
I
were
was
crying all the
crying
time.
because
All the time.
it was happy tears. It was tears of, of just, I'm breaking free of everything that may have been holding me down, and it's over. I'm done. I'm not going to be ashamed of whatever's been holding me down, holding me back. I'm done with that. I know I'm a different dude. I was born a different dude. I've always been a different dude. I know that about myself. But sometimes when you're a different dude and you walk differently and you talk differently and you have the ability to navigate in a way that some people may say, well, I can only navigate on this side, but I can't navigate the other side. And I have the ability to do both. You always sitting, not to throw it out there, but you're always sitting in between. You're always sitting in that spot where you're in between because you're different.
Yeah.
And you allow that stuff to weigh you down. And it almost makes you want to only navigate in one lane. Well, me navigating in one lane is closing off another lane. So then you say, well, you know what? I'm going to move to this lane, but I'm only going to navigate in that lane. But then you closing off the other lane. You know what I'm saying? So I can get faster. I can get somewhere faster if I maneuver both lanes. You get what I'm saying? So for me, it was like I have to fully accept who I am in Christ. And once I started to fully accept who I am in Christ, I started to experience his love. And I was like, man, I want everybody to feel this way. Because we spend too much time hiding behind who somebody else is, hiding behind somebody else's faith. We went to church in 3-4 years before we found our church home. Before we started going to church, my church was on sermons, and then I would go to my dad's church, and then I would go to another church. I would go to Grace, and then my dad's church, and then Grace, and then my dad's church, and then I'm going to church on Sunday at home, and I started watching TV. I started watching these sermons. It was 3-4 sermons a week, and it was just experiencing the love of God. And man, and God was speaking to me in ways that I couldn't understand it then, and I still barely understand it now, but that's where I was at. And so I was so in a different place personally that I just didn't notice. I didn't notice that you were struggling with whether or not, not whether or not, but you were struggling with your role as my wife. I had so much other stuff that mentally, and it was stuff that subconsciously I didn't know was attaching itself to me. You know what I'm saying? I think if I come home and I tell you a story about something, we connected. Now we've always had a relationship where we communicate a lot. So it's not that, it's not that different. But our conversations are deeper now. Our conversations, we can start building off something, and then it blossoms into something completely different. And so now, if I take a 3.5-hour car ride with you, we've always been able to talk, but it's, hey, we'll talk for an hour, and then, hey, we chill, listen to music. We can talk from the time we leave home to your mom's house and the time we leave your mom's house back home. And we can do that in a round trip type style. Go drop the kids off and come back, and now we done talk for 7.5 hours. That's being connected. That's being, we're being, that's connection. That's my spirit is connected to your spirit, and it's a pull together. We're one. When you get married, you become one, right? And so we're one. But we couldn't get to one without becoming one with ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's just a little insight on where I was at, because I didn't understand then that I was doing that. I didn't know that I was ignoring these signs. I didn't know I was ignoring these things. I was always worried about you being fragile. And in a sense of, I didn't want you to go through something and I was unaware of it, that I never worried about, man, what are you going through?
Yeah.
What are you going through? Because if you can't take care of yourself, how can you expect to take care of somebody else?
Yeah.
If you're not right with God, then how can you lead a household full of people? How can your kids be covered if you struggling with putting the cover on? And I don't know if it's the same way for you, but that's kind of where it was for me. And that's kind of, that's why I was so excited. I was like, man, I want you to feel this way.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of my frustration came from. Because I understood. Because before we moved here, I was in a dark place. And to be honest, I was fragile. I was. And when we moved, it was the best thing that we could have done. Not just for our family, but for us individually. When you started your journey, things that you have been telling me, I'm not gonna say they went in one ear and out the other, but things that you've been telling me that I needed to do, I needed to look at, I needed to revisit, I needed to forgive this person or forgive that person or forgive myself or just work through whatever it was, give it to God and let it go. You've been telling me to do that stuff. And even when you started your journey, but it wasn't until I really, truly started my journey was I able to really hear what you had been telling me and accept that I wasn't okay. Yeah. And that I couldn't do it myself. I needed to let God help me. So when I looked back on things that were really traumatizing or really hurtful to me, and I was able to let it go, give it to God, forgive, pray on it, And again, just give it to God. Was I able to let it go and actually really move past that?
Yeah.
Which led to me just loving myself that much more. I've struggled with loving myself. And you've seen it all along. You've understood the things that I needed to do. But I think what made all the difference this time around with you telling me and trying to help me was that God wasn't on the shelf anymore. God was actually a part of our life.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on loving myself. But I can say that I do love myself. I'm still working on things. And God's helping me get through that. But I don't question. And this I can honestly say. This I haven't told you. But this I can honestly say. I don't question anymore why it is you love me.